Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers post-game reaction show. I just got back from Scotiabank Arena, where the Lakers beat the Toronto Raptors 128-111 to improve to 43-33 and 4-1 on their 6-game East Coast road trip. At this point, you guys know the drill. I'm going to go over some box score numbers, provide some context and analysis, and then get into my 3 takeaways from the game. All right, so D'Lo led the Lakers in scoring with 25 points and 7 assists, hit 7 threes. It was the second time this season he hit those 3 marks of at least 25 points, 7 threes, and 7 assists. He went off in the third and fourth quarters. He hit a flurry of threes and jumpers, as he tends to do, and he helped put this game away, stretching the Lakers' lead from like 15 to 20 points into the 25 to 30 point range. He led the team in minutes with 33 minutes. LeBron had 23 points and 9 assists. I thought he really set the tone for this game, attacking the rim, getting downhill in both the first and third quarters, finding AD for lobs and with lasers for finishes around the rim. And though his numbers don't necessarily reflect it, this was a tone-setting performance from LeBron, at least on the offensive end. I think the Lakers' defense in this one could have been better, particularly with the starters. AD had 21 points and 12 rebounds, did have 5 turnovers, which was a third of LA's turnovers, was just 10 of 20 from the floor, missed a bunch of jumpers in this one. His jumper was just not falling tonight. Some uncharacteristic turnovers with getting the ball poked loose or stripped, but solid enough performance from him. He took advantage of the Raptors' lack of size. Kelly Olynyk was often their rim protector, and as we know at this point, he's basically just a stretch 5 out there. So AD dominated. He did have 3 offensive rebounds. LA as a team had 13 offensive rebounds and did take advantage of Toronto's lack of size on their front line. Austin Reeves had an off shooting night. Did make his first 3 in a couple of games. He had been 1 for 15 since the Milwaukee game. Only had 7 points, but did have 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and a career high 3 blocks. So there were several times. It wasn't just Austin, to be clear. It was Rui and Austin and D'Lo. Those guys were getting blown by. I will touch on that in one of my takeaways. But Austin did recover well and was able to disrupt Grady Dick and Emmanuel quickly with some rear view contests and getting some blocks from behind. So Austin did do a solid job of recovering in some of those situations. Rui had 14 points, only 4 rebounds. But the biggest thing for the Lakers, and again, I will touch on it a little bit later, D'Lo was the only player who played over 30 minutes tonight. So LA was able to put this game away basically in like the mid to late third quarter. And once that happened, I don't even think AD played in the fourth quarter. He might have played a little bit. I know LeBron played to start the fourth, but LA was really able to rest their key guys, and with them facing the Washington Wizards on Wednesday night, second night of a back-to-back, that's especially important for AD, who's continuing to battle a left knee hyperextension that has had him listed as questionable the last few games, and LeBron, who missed the last back-to-back on this road trip with his left ankle peroneal tendinopathy. Off the bench, Max Christie led the way with 12 points. Taurean Prince had 8. Spencer Dinwiddie had 9. Jaxson Hayes had 7 and 7 rebounds, including 4 offensive. Had an incredible putback dunk that he landed on his head, and momentarily I thought he was knocked out for a second there. It was a pretty scary sight, a very hard fall, but an incredible athletic display from Jaxson. And then he topped himself in the fourth quarter with an East Bay funk finish, catching the ball in transition, not even taking a dribble, and finishing with a through-the-legs dunk. One of the craziest in-game dunks I've ever seen, and when you factor in his height and how just the degree of difficulty with a taller player doing that, just remarkable. I mean, Jaxson is insane, and you saw how much the Lakers missed him with how well the bench played. Overall, LA shot 51.5%. They made 18 threes and shot 44% on threes. Actually lost the free throw battle. They only took 12 free throws the Raptors attempted 21. So after last game, when the Lakers dominated the free throw battle against the Raptors, and the Raptors coach Darko Rajakovic had that legendary rant about the Lakers free throw disparity and how ridiculous it was. Toronto, I guess it worked because Toronto actually got to the free throw line more. With all that said, let's get into the 3 takeaways from tonight's game. Takeaway number 1 is the bench swung this game. And of course, any game the Lakers win, a bulk of the credit is going to go to LeBron and AD. Tonight, D'Lo for his shooting display and his playmaking, and even Austin for some of his defense, Rui for some of his cuts and his rebounding. So those are the Lakers' 5 best players, and they're typically going to need all 5 to play reasonably well, especially when LA was shorthanded. No Gabe Vincent tonight. LA was resting him on the front end of the back-to-back. No Cam Reddish tonight. He was out for personal reasons, and still no Christian Wood, Jalen Hood-Schifino, or Jared Vanderbilt. So LA had a reasonably thin bench tonight, but it played really well. And coming off being outscored 32-2 by Brooklyn's bench last game, LA outscored Toronto's bench 38-30, and that was a wider margin during the competitive portion of the game. Toronto eventually emptied their bench in the 4th, and those guys started to cut into the lead. But I think tonight really showed the impact of Jaxson Hayes and how much LA missed him in that Brooklyn game. Incredible dunks aside, Jackson's energy and effort and offensive rebounding and just general activity and juice that he provides lineups, I think was really missed. And those second unit groups with him next to LeBron or LeBron and Rui, or just some of those different lineups that LA has started the second quarters with, and sometimes the fourth quarters, I think LA really missed Jackson in comparison with a Colin Castleton, a Harry Giles, as we saw at various points of this trip. So Jackson just continues to solidify himself as a really underrated and important part of this rotation. And then there was Max Christie, who got an opportunity tonight because of no Gabe Vincent and no Cam Reddish. I thought he played incredibly well. To me, he was arguably the second most impactful player off the bench. It was between him and Spencer Dinwiddie behind Jackson. And Max continues to play well when given an opportunity. Again, 12 points, had 7 rebounds, including 2 offensive, had a couple steals, had a block. So what was playing really well defensively, what was active, what was making plays, and continuing to help on the defensive and offensive glass. He's an underrated offensive rebounder. So Max provides something that no one else on the perimeter really does, especially with Jared Vanderbilt out, in terms of his rebounding and just his general energy and effort. Like, he's always locked in and playing his hardest. And yes, there are times he's a bit timid. Yes, there are times where he doesn't shoot as much as he should, or he'll have a turnover, overthink things. But for the most part, I think he's just been really solid and gives LA something that they don't really get from another player, particularly when a guy like Jared Vanderbilt is out. Spencer Dinwiddie was more aggressive after taking just 2 shots against the Nets. He went 3 for 6, including making 3 threes, had 9 points. So I thought a better performance from him. And really tonight, the success was the mixing and matching of the starters with the bench in terms of, if you just look at the plus minuses, like LA won on runs when Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura were off the floor. And that was often with Spencer, Torian, or Max on the floor, sometimes Jackson. So really from like the second half of the first quarter and a bit into the early second, and the second half of the third and early fourth, those were some pivotal stretches where the bench really helped. So LA's bench has been very up and down. Part of that has been due to injuries and guys just being in and out of the lineup, in and out of the rotation. But tonight was a step in the right direction, and I think it just further confirmed that Jaxson Hayes is a very important piece off the bench. Spencer needs to be more aggressive. Max, I think there should be a place for him. Like, I thought he outplayed Torian. I know Torian also had a couple steals and a block, 3 for 8 shooting, 2 for 2 on threes. Also had 5 rebounds, including a couple offensive. But I still think Max kind of pops more on the screen, and has just overall been better than Torian for the last couple months. But once Gabe's back, he's going to take those minutes. If Cam was available, he likely would have taken those minutes. I just think Max continues to be underutilized, but that's probably a topic for another day. But overall, a solid performance from the bench. And to me, a couple of those bench shifts really shifted the game, in conjunction with obviously D'Lo, LeBron, and AD setting the tone offensively. Takeaway number 2 is this blowout might have saved the Lakers road trip, and let me explain why. So going into tomorrow's game, there had been some murmurs that LeBron James wasn't going to play on the second night of a back-to-back. He has rested several back-to-backs over the last couple months, obviously missed the first back-to-back on this road trip. But given that he only played 29 minutes and Anthony Davis only played 28 minutes, the likelihood of both of those guys playing tomorrow has increased. And Darvin Ham said as much post-game. LeBron said as much post-game. Anthony Davis was speaking as if he's playing tomorrow, so I expect him to play tomorrow. But with LeBron and the Lakers continuing to manage his left ankle, he was candid on this trip saying that he needs to take care of his health and his ankle first and foremost, and that if he's not healthy and not firing at close to 100%, it's not what's best for him and it's not what's best for the team. So Lakers are going to continue to monitor and manage his ankle over the stretch run here. The Lakers have a game coming up with the Wizards, who just beat the Milwaukee Bucks at home, and they did so without Kyle Kuzma, without Tyus Jones, without Rashawn Holmes. They're missing several key rotation guys, and so they'll be on a back-to-back as well. But for LA, with LeBron being able to play 7 to 10 fewer minutes than he typically does, with AD in a similar situation, like now LA can bank those minutes. And even if LeBron does end up not playing tomorrow, you also saved him minutes in this game. So for LA, things have not been easy this season. I thought they were about to have their first 20-point win since March 18th, which was that blowout win over the Hawks when they won by 31. Before that, their last 20-point win was on January 21st against the Portland Trailblazers. And 20-point wins aren't the end-all, be-all, but LA has only had 7 20-plus point wins this season. And sometimes that's just garbage time. You know, they'd have plenty of wins in between 15 to 20 points. So I'm maybe picking an arbitrary number there, but LA, for the most part, has been in a lot of dogfights this year. And that's part of why some of their crunch time numbers are so good, are because they've played so many crunch time wins and they've been able to come out victorious on the other side. And I think that's a good sign for the playoffs. But part of that has also been some crunch time games against lesser teams that they probably shouldn't have been in, including several teams on this road trip, like both the Raptors and the Wizards. So the fact that LA was able to put this game away essentially in the third quarter, get some rest for their starters and key guys, I think that's huge for not only the Wizards game, but LA's ability to manage their starters the rest of the season. So, and this was something Darvin was asked about pregame, of how do you manage LeBron and AD's minutes when you're also trying to win every game possible? And he basically said, well, we got to have some blowouts. And you know, if you put a team away early, you can rest those guys. And it's the best of both worlds, where they're still playing, they're staying in rhythm, you're developing the reps and the chemistry and the continuity with your lineups, but then you're also getting to rest those guys in the third and fourth quarter and not overtaxing them. So that was what happened tonight. And if LeBron plays tomorrow, I don't want to say that's the only reason why he's playing is because he played fewer than 30 minutes tonight, but I certainly think that will be a factor in that decision. He said he's going to see how he feels in the morning, but if you know, there's like an alternate universe where this is a closer game, he has to play 34, 35, 36 minutes, the Lakers rest him tomorrow and then potentially lose that game to Washington on the second night of a back-to-back. Like there were moments in the beginning of this game where it looked like, I think the Raptors got out to a 12-4 start, and RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley were living at the rim. So on several fronts, it was important that LA won in the fashion that they did. And we'll see tomorrow if that's what ultimately swings this, where LeBron ends up playing. And the third and final takeaway is LA's point of attack defense continues to be concerning. And I'm going to give a quick caveat because I think Gabe Vincent immediately helped in his return against Brooklyn, and Jared Vanderbilt, their best point of attack defender, has obviously been out for the last couple months. And if he does end up returning before the end of the regular season, I think that would be a huge boost for their point of attack defense. But tonight, we saw it, especially with the starting lineup, Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, who both coincidentally returned against the Lakers. Those guys had been out for a while. And of course, as tends to be the case, those guys come back against the Lakers. But those guys were getting to the rim at will and breaking down the combination of Austin, D'Lo, and Rui just off the dribble. And AD, because Kelly Olynyk is a stretch big and spotting up and picking and popping, AD kind of had to be further away from the rim than he typically was. And you saw whenever AD wasn't around the rim, and even sometimes when he was, because those guys are such talented scorers, they were able to get to the rim and finish and exploit LA's both inability to contain dribble penetration and their subpar rim protection when AD isn't around the rim. So this is a little bit of a nitpick, but I think when you have a blowout win against a lottery team, a team that has now lost 14 consecutive games, I don't think it's all roses coming out of this game, right? You have to look at areas for the team to improve. And to me, it was the dribble penetration that Toronto got. They were able to generate a lot of driving kick opportunities in the first half and even parts of the third quarter. So as I look at ways for LA to improve, part of it is going to just be getting healthier. Again, no Gabe, no Vando, even no Cam, although I think Max should be ahead of him. And Max and Spencer, I thought, did a better job than the Stars did. And of course, there's a bit of an offense-defense trade-off there, going from D'Lo and Austin to Max and Spencer. But as I look at how the Lakers match up against the rest of the West, like the OKC matchup comes to mind, right? And LA has some clear advantages in that matchup with the frontline size and the physicality and the offensive rebounding and their ability to obliterate the Thunder in the paint. But OKC, with their dribble penetration and their driving kick game and their league-leading three-point shooting, that can be an issue for LA if OKC is making their threes. So, that is a potential first-round opponent if the Lakers get into the playoffs. I just think as the season winds down and we evaluate potential Laker weaknesses in a play-in scenario or in a first-round series, that is something that the Lakers are going to have to shore up. Now, I think they did a better job in the second half. There's a little bit more off-ball switching, and they were more mindful of trying to keep AD closer to the rim. And ultimately, it didn't matter in this matchup because LA had such a size advantage and a talent advantage over the Raptors, who were without several rotation players and just in general aren't a very good team. But again, I think this is all about kind of how does this apply to the play-in and the postseason. And LA, the one concern for me from this game was just LA's just allowing dribble penetration, allowing driving kick opportunities, and just the general lack of ability to contain the ball. And for a third time, part of that was just no Gabe, no Vando, and Gabe should be back against Washington. That's the current expectation. And then Vando, we'll see when, if and when he ultimately returns. But part of that will be addressed by those guys and maybe staggering lineups a little bit more. But especially with the starting unit, I think that's one of the continuing concerns is just their ability to contain the ball and figuring out ways to do that and how to mitigate some of the defensive limitations that those guys have. But that will do it for tonight's episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, and liking and commenting. And for those on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms, please consider following, downloading, and leaving a 5-star review. I'll be back on a Wednesday night with a post-game reaction to the Lakers game against the Wizards. I'll talk to you then.